Welcome back. If you have just tuned in, you're still watching Power Lunch in Southern Africa, and we're going to be taking the focus off Black Friday just for a moment in time, just given the fact that we did hear before we went to the break that Sandton City stores will be open up until 8 p.m. Central African time, so you won't be missing out on too much. Still plenty of time. We're going to focus on the state of small to medium enterprises here in South Africa right now, and that of course is in light of some of the renewed confidence we have seen being filtering in the economy following the stable elections that were held earlier on in the year that resulted in a government of national unity that is promising growth. In light of this growth, what does lie ahead for SMEs? Cornerstones for the economy, both in terms of employment as well as economic growth. And despite this, we have seen historically support for the sector waning, or wanting rather, in terms of access to finance, skills development, as well as access to markets. This has led to a considerably high failure rate for SMEs who are in operations for up to 5 years. Many don't even make it to that far. Up to 70% or so are said to fail. So to lay the ground for the current state of SMEs in South Africa, what the ecosystem is looking like right now, and how to reverse some of the challenges currently being experienced, I'm joined by Oscar Sisiba, the head of coverage for business banking in the Standard Bank Group in South Africa. Also joining us at the desk, Mvelo Hlophe, CEO at Zayo, as well as Thabo Hleza, head of investments and business development at Old Mutual's Masisizane Fund. Gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. Please forgive us for taking time for your Black Friday activities, but you still have the whole day. Jokes aside, so a lot of excitement around South Africa, where it's going right now in light of the government of national unity. But we do know that we can't leave the small to medium enterprise sector behind, just given its importance. I believe up to 70% of employment it's responsible for. Let's just maybe get your respective views on the current state of the SME ecosystem. Oscar, you will be speaking about the SMEs that are able to actually come to Standard Bank and ask for lending. So this, I presume, would be SMEs that operate in the formal sector. How are they holding up right now?
You know, Fifi, I must be honest, this sector is very resilient. Despite all the challenges, it's one of those sectors that is very agile, that changes quite quickly, adapts quite quickly. We have seen massive opportunities coming through from these sectors, taking up some of the opportunities that rise as the challenges of the society comes through, and they've always focused on solving what the societies are facing. We're seeing a lot of digital opportunities coming through. They're becoming more digital, but there's definitely a trend that is going up in terms of these businesses that are coming through. But most of the businesses that are coming through still focuses mainly on access to finance.
Sure.
But in essence, what we tend to find that engaging with most of them is that access to finance has kind of dropped down in the higher order. You're finding access to information, access to markets, access to network, and access to information is becoming much more critical.
Sure.
And if you want to take a step back, you can have as much money and much capital you have. If you don't have the market, you don't have the information, you don't have the network, you're probably stuck. And I think that's one of the things that we're picking up. And they're more focused getting into those elements, then funding becomes much easier. And I was joking with some of my panelists earlier on and says, there's so much funding available.
Sure.
It's just the good businesses, the markets, the access to products, and how you serve your customers that has become extremely important. Okay. And I must say, though we're seeing the formal sector still be active, there's a lot that's happening in what people call informal, which we believe is an economy on its own, because there's so much activities that is taking place in what we call so informal sectors, and some of it called township economy.
Which is the sector that Thabo deals with, I suppose, more closely than you, just given the fact that your fund is focused on those who are historically disadvantaged, and perhaps those who you might deem in their current form as Standard Bank a little bit too risky. So what is the state of the SME ecosystem in your view? I mean, we just heard from Oscar talking about resilience. I think South African businesses dreading that word, and they're hoping that under this GNU they don't have to be so resilient. But we heard agility, we heard that they adapt, and we heard that access to finance is not the #1 issue right now. It's more access to markets and business developments. Does the same hold in the informal sector, or are there differences?
So it certainly holds, right? One thing that to look at, you've got about 3 million SMEs in the country, 2.5 million of those at that micro level, 70% of that are in the informal sector, which then says three things will be true at the top of it. How do you provide capacity building that enable these businesses to access markets and access capital? But what also you are seeing now, you've got a serious pricing pressures, which I think is expected against the rising food cost, rising cost of fuel, and a couple of other pressures. But you're also seeing the benefit out of the interest rate declining the last 2 quarters on the back of inflation cooling, which then also says around the solution that we are providing as funders, we've got to be as innovative as possible so that we are able to respond adequately to this informal sector.
Okay, so Mbele, we can't talk about entrepreneurs or SMEs without talking to entrepreneurs or SMEs. So perhaps maybe you can give us a perspective from where you sit. Yeah. I saw that you started your business essentially that is also in the business of digitizing a lot of businesses. Yes. In a cafeteria. Yeah. At Varsity. Yeah. Incredible story, but tell us a little bit more about your story and what the state of the sector is, in your view.
Yeah, I mean, so we are in the ICT space, so we're in skills development particularly. So we started our business in 2018, so we've been around for a while where, you know, we train individuals through boot camps, online boot camps, so it's fully virtual. Afterwards, we help individuals get jobs, because, I mean, that's probably one of the most important things in South Africa right now. You know, as a small business owner, it's always good to be brought and to get a seat at this table, and hearing other funders speak about, you know, what it looks like as a small business owner, but experiencing it is very different. So obviously there's concerns around funding, access to funding, but, you know, at the end of the day, what does the climate and what do the funders, or how are they helping us to actually access those opportunities as well? How are they putting those opportunities in front of us? So we're still finding that we are struggling to get the necessary information that we need to be able to access those funding opportunities. It's good to hear that there's a lot of money that's available for entrepreneurs, but where is it? You know, where do we start? Where do we, you know, is there some sort of incubation programs where we could be even pre-vetted to be able to access some of those funding opportunities? So when you look at the criteria for some of the funding institutions, it's quite difficult, I guess, for a small business owner to be able to meet all of them. Sure. The interest rates are pretty high. You get anything between 10 to 15% on a loan. You have to have collateral that you don't have as a small business owner. You just started off. Maybe you're also just a young person as well that just got out of university, and you don't own any assets, so you can't put any assets as collateral for anything that you actually borrow from the bank. So it is quite interesting, obviously, to hear, but at the same time, the lived reality is quite different on the other side.
Sure. So Oscar and Thabo, both of you were nodding when he was talking about incubator programs and other related programs, accelerator programs that could support in terms of information sharing, helping them as entrepreneurs. He used the word we, so I imagine he wasn't just speaking for himself, but rather his peers in the ecosystem, helping them understand exactly what you need to also maybe unlock your purse strings more. So I know both of you are going to tell me that you've got such programs going on, but there's clearly a knowledge gap in terms of it's not widely known out there in the public. So maybe just talk about that, what you do have on the go and in supporting SMEs in their current form, and what you're trying to do differently in getting your word out there on the street.
There's a lot, but I'm going to focus on one or two, you know, Fifi, that we believe is going to make a difference. And the challenge that Velo has indicated is real. So providing information, where to go, how to go about it, and what funds are available. Some of the funds do not necessarily sit in the banking environment, as an example. Might sit in government agencies, might sit in fund managers. And we have opened up that information to say, here are the different funds that are available for these type of businesses. We also try to get into where the entrepreneurs are and share information. As of recently, we're running a lot of tools capability, which is the business that my brother is running, and helping entrepreneurs. What is it that you need? When you need funding, how do you prepare? How do you put a plan together? What should be in the plan? How do you go about? So there's a lot that we're trying to get closer to the entrepreneurs, provide as much information in the digital platforms, in some of our distribution networks, in government agencies. Government plays a big role. Firstly, they've got the scale and the access to where our entrepreneurs are. But the issue around skills is a big issue. Okay. Because if you don't have the skill, you might have an idea. Even to put skills together is something that we're helping entrepreneurs to do. So there is those non-financial advisory capabilities that the bank, specifically Standard Bank, are trying to get that in front of the entrepreneurs. We've been to the townships. Sure. To try and get the township business people to share stories. So one of the big part is entrepreneurs believe by seeing. So if you put in a colleague like my brother here in front of the entrepreneurs telling his story, it makes a huge difference. So we're really getting into a space where we make it more practical, more accessible, and easier. And more importantly, where is the market?
Okay, yeah. So we're fast running out of time, and there's just so much to explore with this. We'll probably need a 2.0 in terms of conversation. But you opened up and you told us, Thabo, that a lot of the SMEs in South Africa that operate in the space are in the informal sector. Oscar's talking about, some of the digital campaigns and digital drives out there. One has to wonder how many of them have got access to digital capabilities. I mean, you mentioned the township economy. We're seeing what's going on in the township economy right now in a specific sector of a business, and that's the spaza shops. But maybe just talk about how you are trying to amplify the support within the sector that might not have the digital capabilities to get the reach, and you also don't have the resources to go door to door in 70% of the economy.
Yeah, no, thanks, Peter. So one thing that is clear, we'll never be able to address this alone. So partnership and collaboration is a center of getting the message and the solution to the township businesses. So one thing that is often said across the funding landscape is you've got enough opportunities that are worthy for funding, but majority of those are not investment ready. Then you've got the criteria challenge that Umvezo is talking to. So one thing that we've done as a business is how do you partner with accelerators and funding ready agents that making sure that they do the pre-vetting exercise so that the quality of the applications that are coming through are pre-vetted, enables us to respond to those quite timelessly, then we can deploy capital in time. But what we also do, how do you get this message out there so that it is not reserved for the few, right? And access to information is the critical bit, and that's what we've been trying to do as a fund, so that by the time applications come through, you don't have these similar states of 70% decline rate. And a greater part of it is a great solution, but how the business is packaged is not investment ready. And the last part, this fund was set up with an understanding that you've got a greater youth population that does not have the collateral, does not have the contribution. So how do you assess then the opportunity slightly differently, knowing that this is the population that you are dealing with?
Sure. We've heard, I think, a little bit of the private sector view, and maybe just in the short amount of time that we still have left, maybe you can give us your experience of what you think about the policy framework that is governing the SME and entrepreneurship space, as it were. Is it supportive? Does it go long enough? And I mean, we have heard SMEs countless times saying that in terms of doing business with government, there has been commitment from government to pay invoices within 30 days. A lot of those promises have been unmet. There has been a commitment from government also to introduce or allow SMEs to participate in big tender programs by being part of the value chain. I believe it was some 30% or so at one stage, but a lot of that has gone undelivered as historically. currently. So just your assessment of the environment right now, to the degree that it's supportive and the degree that you're hoping it can be more supportive under the GNU.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's three main areas that the, I guess, entrepreneurship strategy that South Africa was putting forward wanted to focus on. One of them was, bureaucracy, ending that or making it more easy for individuals such as me to actually do business. It was training around entrepreneurship, getting more entrepreneurs skilled, and then one of them was access to financing. So in looking at all of that, there's varying degree of success in how we've achieved that as a country. And we're hoping that, I guess, with the GNU, there'll be acceleration in that, where now there's a unified government that is looking to obviously innovate. There's experiences in different parts of the country where we've seen, I guess I don't want to name political parties, but the way they worked in the Western Cape, where it's turned into a really vibrant hub that has attracted a lot of innovation. How we can the DA, yeah, that can then spread across the rest of the country. I mean, now that they're in government, right? Where now we're not focusing on smaller issues, so to speak, but now we're looking at a big picture. Where is South Africa actually going? So that's what we're hoping as entrepreneurs, is that we're now going to focus on the entrepreneur and actually working together to deliver and implement on all the promises that have been made.
Okay. Gentlemen, unfortunately, we're going to have to park the conversation there for now. I know that there's a lot that still needs to be said. We're going to invite you for 2.0. Next time, of course, I will make sure that I'm much better dressed. I didn't know that you get suited and booted on a Friday, but looking absolutely impeccable. Thanks once again for your time. In conversation, of course, with Oscar Siziba, the head of coverage for business banking in Standard Bank South Africa, Mvelo Hlophe, CEO at Zayo, as well as Thabo Hleza, the head of investment and business development at Old Mutual Masisizane Fund. And I am serious that we will certainly revisit this conversation, just given the importance of SMEs, as I said, to the economy, and not only for strengthening their resilience in the local economy, but also strengthening their resilience locally so that they can pursue opportunities continentally. We do know that big business is also on quite a big push to do so. Before we go, perhaps one last look at the markets and the rand at current levels right now. Palisa did tell us at the top of the show, JC looking a little bit weaker, 84,625 is what I've got on my screen. So we are on course to book a